All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
We're here today because we care about our city, and we're focused on our city.
Mayor Joe Hogsett lays out his $3 million plan to slow the crime surge here in Indianapolis. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. And we start with two big issues before the city of Indianapolis. It starts with that plan to fight record levels of violence across the city. The mayor wants to spend more than $3 million additional dollars on crime-fighting programs. $1.8 million would go to programs for mental health and intervening in domestic violence and youth violence. Another $1.5 million would pay for enhancements at IMPD.
Today's announcements are not intentional in terms of a magic wand that we can wave and make all the gun violence disappear. I do think that they are substantial investments in the community.
Indianapolis is becoming an incredibly dangerous city. What's happening? What's going on?
Well, that's what we've been talking about, Richard, for the last 30 minutes. It's unacceptably.
We want a clear answer. Not 30 minutes of rhetoric. I want a clear answer on what's happening in this city.
Well, I want to make it clear that you haven't been given 30 minutes of rhetoric. You've been given 30 minutes of pretty substantive ideas that we as a community are committed to implementing.
Now, that proposal would be introduced to the council this week. The council also set to vote tomorrow night on a plan to ease some virus restrictions in Marion County. The new rules would lift the mask mandate for anyone who is fully vaccinated and expand capacity for some businesses. The mayor says that if Indianapolis can get to 50% vaccinated by July 4th, the plan is to lift the remaining restrictions.
I know how fatigued everyone is with these restrictions. And so I can't encourage enough coming forward, getting the vaccine so that Marion County can be in a position to return to a full sense of normalcy.
Let's welcome in Brian Mowry, Minority Leader of the City County Council. Brian, thanks so much for your time today. The council is voting on Monday to potentially ease restrictions in Marion County. Is it time? Should the restrictions be lifted?
Is it time? Absolutely. Is it long overdue? Absolutely. For the last year, over a year, we've heard follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. But then when the science says that we no longer need masks, it's no longer a priority anymore. Let's keep people masked up, restrictions in place, and keep people from doing what they want to do freely. I had called on President Osley to call a special meeting of the City County Council to address this matter and to lift the mask mandate, lift the other mandates as well in a special meeting, and I have yet to hear back, and that's alarming to me.
I want to talk about vaccination rates. Do you think that the council, the city, is doing enough regarding the city's vaccination?
Absolutely. I think this is vaccination is a personal choice. It should not be mandated upon anybody. And if people want to get the vaccine at this point, they can get the vaccine up to 12 and up, or that's where we're at right now. And it's the science that we've been following has shown that children under the age of 12, and especially school-age children, are not at high risk or high risk of transmitting the disease either. So it's time that we admit that we're following the science, and we do just that.
And what about businesses? Have you talked to business owners? How are they faring? I know many of them struggling a lot. Has the city done enough to help them?
No, the city has not done enough to help these business owners. There's a lot of things that, I'm not saying right now that I have the answers for what we need to do or what we can do, but quite frankly, I think when we look at the last year with all that's been entailed in the last year with the pandemic, with the riots, we've seen business owners that have struggled very much so, and they are doing the best they can to keep their business afloat. And it's been tough. And I think we've seen that last year, whether it's a restaurant or an athletic store. It's hard to keep people in there when there's restrictions and mandates that say they can't have so many people and they can only have so many people in the store. At this point, one of the things I think we can do for the businesses is lift these restrictions and open it back up 100%. When we look at places such as Chicago, even, they're getting ready to open them back up to 100%. Why can't Indianapolis do that?
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about violence in the city. We are at record highs. Who is to blame here with gun violence in the city? What's going on?
I think the gun violence has been a lot to the failed leadership. Honestly, we've seen a record homicides year over year outside of 1 year, but then it shot right back up. The Indy homicide rate right now is 30% higher than it was last year. Statistically, we're on a path to approach 300 homicides in 1 year. And that's alarming, and that should be alarming to everybody. And we should all be asking why we're on that path. If we have a public safety mayor that's in place right now and he's holding the office, then he needs to be the public safety mayor and actually prove that we have public safety. And right now, it's anybody's guess as to where we stand with public safety, because every day you wake up and I see updates from your news station, from multiple news stations that say someone shot in somewhere in Indianapolis, someone's been killed somewhere in Indianapolis. Every day. At what point do we say enough is enough and it's time to look at what we can do?
If you were able to give a direct message to Mayor Hogsett, what would it be?
The direct message I would give to Mayor Hogsett is it's time to take this serious. You need to get involved with the prosecutor's office. You need to get involved with public safety. You need to get people in there that know what they're doing and know how to help with this crime and the homicide rates. And we need to get someone out there that will try to put an end to this, because right now people don't feel safe. Myself personally, I don't necessarily want to be in downtown Indianapolis some nights after dark, because it gets dangerous. And I hate to say that, but it's how many people feel.
Brian Mowry, thanks so much for your time today.
Coming up, IU backs down on its requirement for proof of vaccination. We talk about that and why there won't be a commission to investigate the Capitol insurrection with Senator Mike Braun. Next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. Republican state lawmakers flexing their muscles this week, forcing IU to change its COVID vaccine policy. Republican members of the Indiana House and Senate called on IU to drop its requirement that students, faculty, and staff submit proof that they've been vaccinated by the fall semester. IU has backed off that part of its policy, saying instead it will offer incentives for those who document their vaccinations. Senator Mike Braun, who has refused to say if he's personally received the vaccine, applauded the decision as he talked with our Alexis Rogers.
Number one, I was glad to see that they backed off there. I think whenever you try to be heavy-handed through either a major institution, especially government, it doesn't work. You need to explain what you're trying to do from a common sense point of view. Thank goodness we've got the vaccine. Thank goodness we had warp speed that got it to the market quickly. I was there in the early discussions with Dr. Fauci and others when it looked like there was going to be argument between FDA, CDC. Well, it's putting the lid on it and getting it into the rearview mirror. So I know that there's sensitivity that goes from too casual to too overbearing. And in this case, I'm glad IU modified their approach a bit.
Switching gears a bit here, this was a big week, especially for America, as a lot of people were talking about the Tulsa massacre. A lot of people have been talking about voting rights. We've been seeing some states put more restrictions, others asking to try to secure voting rights. What's your response to what needs to be done now that we kind of see where America's going?
In general, I think we've learned a couple lessons. We should encourage everyone to be able to vote. It's a honor to have that as part of our democracy. We got to make sure that we encourage as many legal ballots to be cast and counted. And I think coming through this last election, there are arguments on both sides. We cannot be afraid to have everyone with the access to vote. We should encourage that and make sure that happens. On the other hand, we want to make sure that once that occurs, everyone is satisfied with a legal and accurate outcome. So I think what we're seeing now is maybe trying to find that best practice, and I think Indiana should be proud because we heard very little about what happened here. Maybe it's because we're not a swing state, but I think it's because we were one of the states that provided maybe the most ease of being able to exercise that duty with a lot of early voting, many different ways to request an absentee ballot. I think maybe was the sweet spot of what other states ought to look for, and including any national observation of it. But to me, it is the responsibility and bailiwick of the states, and I'm uneasy with the federal government trying to get more involved, and it may not be constitutional to boot.
So just for the grandmothers at home, because I actually was having this conversation with my grandma. I mean, she's from a different generation, and she's like, look, I remember when people tried to keep me from voting. This is a real thing. So do we need more restrictions, or do we need to just leave it alone?
No, we should try to encourage and make it easy for everyone to vote. And then I think on the other hand, we want to make sure that once that vote is cast, that everybody has confidence in the outcome. And I think the ideal would be to find the best of both worlds, but you can never do anything that's going to suppress a vote. If you're worried about that, you better improve your message to the voters.
And lastly, a lot of people still have the insurrection on their minds. We've seen a lot of folks kind of talking about whether there should be a commission, what that looks like. Again, talking with folks like from my grandmother's point of view, people are saying, hey, shouldn't we look into this more? And others are saying, hey, let's just leave it alone. Where do you stand?
Well, you got to make sure that that doesn't get politicized, because the FBI has been really working hard to make every individual accountable. I think up to close to 450 arrests. And as much faith as that we generally put in the FBI, and that's come into play over the last few years for other issues as well, let that play itself out. And if there's any information that involves a conspiracy or some coordination, I think they're going to get to the bottom of it. You could not have a quicker, more effective way to find out if there was something more than just a very bad day there that erupted in a horrible way. And I think the committees that have been in place are doing that as well. The fact that this is constructed early out of the gate in maybe a partisan way, tried to mold it into a more bipartisan method, and then I think it got politicized. So I think if there's a need after the FBI comes forward with their report, then we should be willing, of course. Transparency, digging into what caused something like that's important. I just think that we've got the best investigative institution in the country that's already made a lot of progress.
Well, I thank you so much for your time, and of course, that's all we have for now. Back to you guys.
Alexis, thank you. Is Mayor Hogsett's plan for public safety spending enough to quiet criticism of his office during the surge in violence? Our political team talks about that next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics on this Sunday as we welcome back Drew Anderson, Communications Director for the Indiana Democratic Party, and Abdul Hakim Shabazz, publisher of IndyPolitics.org. Good to see you both. Thank you for taking some time. Abdul, we'll start with you on this one. Is Mayor Hogsett's announcement on additional anti-crime spending enough to ease criticism that he hasn't done enough to stop the surge in violence, in your opinion?
Well, not really, because you got to understand the mayor, every summer since the mayor's been in office, he's always announced a major anti-crime initiative. A couple years ago, it was the violence interrupters and peacemakers. And unfortunately, our murder rate continues to go up and continues to have record homicides. And I asked the mayor during this news conference, what's going to be different about this? And the mayor admitted that, hey, you know what? It's going to take a while to get things done, but they're trying to address sort of the root causes of crime and also some of the other parts of crime as well. But for regular citizens, citizens don't feel safe in Indianapolis anymore, and that's what our problem is.
Drew, your response?
I mean, I think what's happening in Indianapolis is happening statewide. It's happening across the country. And I think at the end of the day, the fact that the mayor and the council are taking action to try to solve this problem of violence is something that Hoosiers are seeing, and I hope we're feeling hopeful for, just because at the end of the day, Democrats are coming to the table. They're asking for solutions. The council created a grassroots community-based style committee to try to solve the issue of violence. And the mayor, this week also announced his plans. And, in contrast, the Republicans, they're just walking away and putting their hands up in the air. And as we even saw earlier in this show, they're blaming instead of meeting us at the table and try to actually solve this together. And we're only going to tackle the issue of violence when we all come together and actually form common sense solutions. And Democrats, like we're doing in every other policy, like the rescue plan, we are trying to create solutions to this problem.
Well, stick with you here, Drew. Democrats have also used this week to tout the success in Indiana and around the country of the Biden economic recovery plan. Mm-hmm. I guess that's a pretty good thing for you guys.
Of course it is. I mean, just this week, the Indiana Democratic Party is launching its American Rescue Plan tour. And it's because we know it's a popular policy, and it's because it's putting COVID in the rearview mirror, and Hoosiers are seeing their lives go back to normal. And that is what good government does, and good partnerships between federal government and state government do. And it's a good reminder that it was only Democrats that got this done, and not Republicans.
Abdul, I'll get you in here real quickly on this one. Is this becoming harder for Republicans to fight against?
Well, I think it's a joint effort. Drew talked about some people working together. You had the federal dollars coming in from the federal level, but you also had the state of Indiana, Eric Holcomb, Todd Houston, Rod Bray, their good fiscal management that also got us through this as well. Because what's the whole point of having a whole bunch of money if you spend it all on more than one-time expenditure? So I think the federal government does deserve some credit in this, but also it was state government that actually carried out and executed the plan.
Provided by the American Rescue Plan, by the way.
Okay, well, there you go. So speaking of statewide government, and we'll go back to you on this one, Abdul. A judge has set a hearing later this month on the legal fight between Governor Eric Holcomb and Attorney General Rokita. There's serious legal questions in this lawsuit, but is it being overshadowed by a political fight and maybe even the Attorney General setting up a 2024 campaign to replace Governor Holcomb?
It is interesting to say the least. Let's put it that way, because there are serious legal questions. There are questions about, does the legislature have the authority to call a special session? I don't think they do, having read the Constitution several times. But there are questions about, can the governor sue while lawmakers are in session? Is the Attorney General the sole proprietor as to what's constitutional? These are serious legal questions. PJ Dietrich, who's the judge in this case, is going to hear it on the 16th. I've known PJ for years. He's a really good guy, a really straight shooter, and he's going to rule fairly and honestly. But at the end of the day, regardless to who wins this litigation, it's going to end up at the Supreme Court.
A lot of inside legal baseball there. But Drew, we'll get your thoughts on this as well.
It's wasting taxpayer dollars. It is a solution in search for a problem. And quite frankly, it's really embarrassing because once again, it shows that the Republican Party would rather, abide by some extreme partisanship than actually tackling issues that Hoosiers want to get done.
Gentlemen, and this is for both of you. Shouldn't the Attorney General and the governor just sit down, hash this thing out before taking this to court?
You could, but here's the problem with that. When we talk about, for example, a special session, it's not like we're talking about spending the government wants to spend $1 billion, the other people want to spend $500 million. Okay, we'll meet in the middle at $750. This is a serious constitutional question. Either the legislature has the authority or they don't. I mean, it's black or white. It's binary mathematics.
But we're not even there though yet, Abdul. We're talking about whether or not the governor can even sue.
But even then, there's really nothing to settle here because these are questions that are going to have to be solved and settled by a judge because there's no halfway point in between. Either you have the authority or you don't have the authority.
Yeah. About 30 seconds left, Drew. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this is Pride Month, rather. We started last week. Your thoughts? I know you wanted to say a few words.
Pride matters a lot to LGBTQ Hoosiers and the whole communities, because when we stood up and we showed that we were visible, that's what started the process of getting the acceptance that we're getting right now. And there's a lot of work to do, but we should celebrate who we are and who God created us to be. And happy Pride to everyone across Indiana.
Yeah, moving in the right direction. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking some time. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.